The real magic of baseball may be that they can make lawsuits disappear, because that's what they do. The foul ball fantasy is actually ending in tragedy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for coming back to another edition of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig. Excited to bring in our guests in a few minutes. People tuning in for the first time know that after I go through some news, we'll then turn the tables. The guests will bring us a lot of questions, or some questions, for good time discussion about learning about something maybe people are finding out about for the first time. So we'll bring that experience on in a little while. But first, I want to address some news. As people know, Foul Ball Safety Now has been around now for 6 years. I've been working with journalist Brendan. Brianna's been with me for about a year. Brendan's been with me for about 6 years. We've recorded probably about 80 interviews with victims, people that have unfortunately been hurt by foul balls, baseball players themselves. More than 30 baseball players have spoken with us about their own experiences playing the game and reflecting upon their time as players and telling us their own experiences, what was going through their mind as players, what they may have shared with their families. That may come up in our discussion today. And it's all very powerful stuff. So I want people to discover. They may not necessarily see the interviews that we've done on these people. That may eventually be shared in a book. But what we can show you on the website is press releases and just our journey from 2019 to now. And we've been at this for quite a while. A lot of new discoveries, a lot of things that are happening, self-reported injuries that we're discovering in 2025, which require us to now go back and find out more. We found out some from before 2025, but we are learning that there could be many more self-reported injuries we haven't found out about. So people can learn and discover things for themselves at foulballsafetynow.com. There's a couple of things that I want to emphasize that I don't think we've really addressed enough, which is about 2 weeks ago during a playoff game, Seattle and Detroit. Game was in Seattle. Broken bat comes into the seats. We all didn't see it until the broadcast went into commercial break, and then we knew the bat had broken, but we didn't know that most of the bat actually flew over the netting into the seat until they broke to commercial. And then America saw it together because it was a big playoff game and everyone's watching a big playoff game. We can all see the bat coming over the netting from the seating perspective like a boomerang. And that bat could have done some serious damage or could have pierced somebody's heart. And you even hear the announcer saying, as we're all seeing this video together, yikes, look out. So if that can't start a conversation, I don't know what can. So that is going to eventually be addressed. We thought that we would have seen more people on social media reacting to it and even hearing the announcer acknowledge it. And I'm at least glad that the Major League or the Fox team, whoever was running the game at the time, showed that video to us. So we do have that. We did capture that video. If I was ever doing a conference, I'm leading with that, certainly in the next couple of months. It's news. We need to address it. It hasn't been addressed. Brendan and I wrote a letter to the Seattle Mariners after we learned about it, and we hoped they would have addressed it before their next home game. We don't know if they did or not. And there was another home game after that bad incident occurred. That being said, business as usual, incorrect. Allowing bats to fly over nets, incorrect. That's my thoughts on that. Let everyone else decide when we finally have a good back and forth discussion on this. So that's definitely in the news. And then we want to follow up on the Queens College investigation. We've already written 3 letters to the Queens College administration. The next letter is going to include the NCAA on the thread because the student athlete contacted me months ago and told me that the student athletes are worried that one of them are going to do some serious damage. He says, Google Earth Queens College, which we did. We noticed as he was sharing with me, there's an elementary school right next door to the Queens College on the same campus on the grounds of the playing field. There are school children walking on the side. These student athletes are worried amongst themselves about doing serious damage. We believe that the student athlete's psychological well-being is not being met. The NCAA needs to follow certain guidelines to make sure their student athletes' psychological needs are adhered to, whatever that fancy word means. Psychological well-being should not be messed with, and we think it is. So we're gonna get them involved in this. It's not just Queens College, it's many colleges where balls are flying outside, and we know that there's 169 professional ballparks. We know of a woman that there was a ball that flew outside. We were contacted by the attorneys in Modesto, California, earlier this spring, and they were having a trial in the summer. A woman was struck in the head outside the ballpark in July of '23. And why, for the 2 years after, did the local fans in Modesto not know about this? We wrote 3 letters to the Modesto newspaper. People can see the tabs, the Queens College investigation. They can see the tabs. I think we call it Unknown Modesto. You can check out those tabs, follow what we're doing. Following what we're trying to create is a conversation. We want to bring an epiphany of awareness to this matter and let people decide how they feel now that they've learned about things they may have missed. Hopefully, agencies will also have the courage to speak up and say, we should have known about this years and years ago. But that's what we'll continually do. We'll demonstrate what we're learning and what we're finding. All right, guys. So, Brianna, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jordan. I'm excited to get into this conversation. Things
Great.
definitely need to change. And who better to talk about what needs to change in baseball than with a concerned baseball fan? So that's our guest for today. Her name is Elle Olenzak. Welcome, Elle.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, Brianna. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Elle. How you doing? Good to talk to you today.
Likewise.
So, yes, we're anticipating from our introduction from a while back. You now have some more information about foul ball safety, and we're excited for you to bring us your questions.
Yeah. I am a little bit like, how is this not news? Like, let's just jump into it. How is this not
Mhm,
news? Like, this is
mhm,
upsetting on every level.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I'm already like spinning in my mind. How can I
mm,
help? What can
uh-huh.
I do? What can I do on the ground? How did
Sure.
that game in Seattle, how did that not make the air? The bat.
Well, it made the air, but it didn't get anyone's reaction, and you even had the announcers say, "Yikes, look out." So if that's not shining a light on it, I'm grateful that the TV, which usually edits things by design, they'll show you what they wanna show
Right.
you, and they'll not show you what they don't wanna show you. In this case, they showed you. It was at an exciting part of the game where the game was going back and forth or was close. This was almost like the cherry on top of the excitement based on the way the producers showed it. It's like, we have everything going on here tonight, including broken bats coming over nets. And yikes, look out. So it was almost included in all the enthusiasm about what was happening. It was like another added element to the ambiance. But we can certainly take that one element and put it on the wall, and hopefully people who are baseball fans and not baseball fans will wanna analyze this matter a little further. And it clearly demonstrated that business as usual allows broken bats to come into seats at crazy speeds that could do really serious impact. So,
With no warning, and this isn't a written script, and the story
mhm,
doesn't end well, and it's not happily ever after for so many people, so thank you for bringing a very bright light onto
mm.
this severe topic.
Well, I appreciate that, and the reason why I'm still on board is because people were reminding me all the time from either the legal perspective or the victim perspective, and clearly the player perspective that we are in need. They're curious. The lawyer wants to know anything we can do to help them support a particular case. The victim wants to tell us about what happened to them and how they may feel now. And then certainly the baseball player, we've interviewed more than 30 baseball players who've been wrestling with this dilemma and probably speaking with Brendan and I, which are probably the first outsiders of the inner circle of baseball that they've discussed this issue with, and maybe want to get the monkey off their back because they kind of knew they were in a compromising place as a young adult, making the strides on trying to pursue being major leaguers and going through all the levels of professional baseball, and amongst themselves knew that serious damage could occur, but didn't have the courage. Maybe they shouldn't have been the ones to step up. Maybe it should have been their parents. Maybe it should have been the players before them that should have taken the burden off of these younger people. So there's a lot of questions that I will continually put on the table for us to decide where historical accountability needs to go, and why aren't we addressing the victims? Clearly, we believe, because Brendan and I have interviewed more than 20 victims and family members, that these folks don't have the reconciliation they deserve, and it comes out in different ways, what the business establishment of baseball can do. But until we recognize this as a baseball community about things we may have missed, I'm glad people are ready to receive information and be open-minded to taking in our research and, let the chips go for where they may. And if there's mud on their faces or a lot of mud on their faces, let's disclose it. I do have an expression. We're still in the dark ages, 2025, but I hope in 10 years from now we could all say, "You remember those dark ages back in 2025 when business as usual was done a certain way."
I believe that there's really an era of romanticism that's surrounding the foul ball moment. And there's this level of anticipation and wanting to be the one that catches the ball. And depending on the play and who hit the ball, maybe the ball is worth some money. And all of these factors are sort of lending themselves to the so called magic of baseball. But sadly, the real magic of baseball may be that they can make lawsuits disappear because that's what they do. And for so many people, the foul ball fantasy is actually ending in tragedy. And when it's a very serious injury, a death, or a child who is critically injured, the MLB will usually settle outside of court, so it never reaches a jury. And that
Mhm.
settlement will include a big fat NDA, which means that the victim can never speak publicly about the incident. And all of that is lending itself to this issue disappearing from the public eye.
If I may, I would just like to continue on that I wholeheartedly believe also after going through the research and developing this dialogue with you here, it's also, I think, a bit of disillusioned ideals and the whole playing into the Americana experience about taking your family to the game and getting, these great seats and exactly seeing your heroes on the field. And it's in a split second of a moment that all of that can change. And no one, it just, I'm still flabbergasted that some of these incidences go without even being reported. Like, how is all of that actual history being erased from the event? And it's just really upsetting.
Yeah, well, we're in healthy aggression over here, and we've had other recordings with guests who they seem to be very upset. And we had a gentleman on not too long ago who seemed to be very upset with hearing and learning everything we've been presenting. Who was a huge baseball fan, so almost like grieving in real time, kind of thing. And we were just saying, All we wanna do is demonstrate what we've learned, and
Yeah.
if this information will be eventually housed somewhere, we think a place like Cooperstown would be appropriate. That's where they have the Baseball Hall of Fame. Maybe a place like
Mhm.
Dyersville, Iowa, as well, where that's going to become a place of destination, where they've done the Field of Dreams games, and I think they may be building up the area as well. But somewhere on Main Street, take one of these souvenir stores and convert it into almost like a Foul Ball Safety Now Learning Center 2025. Hopefully, it'll then transition into, we can say in 10 years from now, when it opened up in 2025 or 2026, it was almost like an ongoing campaign to bring awareness to this issue, to bring reconciliation to victims. How are we going to go about doing it? But hopefully, it'll transition in 10 years from now to a place where you remember those dark ages back in 2025 when nobody really knew much about this issue, but then we started something, and then it sort of will maybe start off as a learning center exhibit of a big major problem that we believe still is because they're not addressing the past and they're not addressing the present, but then it'll be permanent for the next 100 years, and this is part of the history of baseball, not a side that baseball really wanted you to learn about. People can walk in thinking one thing about the experiences and then come out thinking something else, whether it's a year from now when we're in the middle of the business of discussion and us trying to start an effective discussion. Hopefully, it'll transition into solutions. We want solutions. We believe it's possible. Dialogue will create solutions. People like Brianna who have very young children will come to the game and know exactly that cotton candy and soda or whatever corn syrup they're digesting that day is their only problem. Nothing else. Yes. Right?
Oh, you
That's it. We
digress,
can do it.
Jordan, you
Yes,
digress.
I
We
did, I
can
did.
go in
But
a whole other page for
I
that.
know, I know, I know. But we're not bitter or we're not upset, but we do wanna
No.
know.
I am not as intertwined with baseball as you may have been, Al. I know you shared some of your backstory with us and how it's just been a huge part of your life, but
Mhm.
I do live in a city. I live in Los Angeles where baseball is a huge part of our culture. We have the Dodgers, we have the Angels, and I've been dragged to my fair share of games by either family members or friends and things of that nature. And I think just as a parent, you're looking to get your kids out of the house, and baseball markets pretty heavily towards children, going so far as to having, maybe a theme night that's the kids are begging you to take them to, or, a lot of parks have playgrounds at the park and really just marketing as this wholesome family friendly environment. So I'm so grateful that I came into contact with the campaign before taking my son to a game because I definitely would have done it and had no idea what I was walking into. And I know, I mean, my heart just breaks for every single parent who has taken their child to a game and their child's life has been permanently changed. I just can't even imagine that feeling. So I do my best to educate people, and especially when I hear any of my friends who are parents talk about taking their kids to a game, and you get this crazy look because nobody expects something that is marketed so heavily towards children to have this dark underbelly of forgotten, hidden incidents that have just been sort of tossed to the wayside, but are extremely important, and these are people, these are human beings that this is happening to, and so part of why I've worked with Foul Ball Safety Now for over a year now is just to try and get this message out there and prevent it from happening to any other family to the best of our ability, and the way that we're doing that is by educating people.
It's obviously not a foul ball or
Mhm,
the protection from it. However, my son was the baseball tradition carried on. I grew up on the field as we
mhm,
discussed earlier
mhm.
preliminary. My son was a very strong pitcher. He's like a big teddy bear, and he obviously hit someone at one point, and he was devastated. It actually ended his very, very promising career, and he could not handle the emotional aftermath of hurting somebody. So I guess my point of putting that out there, sharing that, is to say I imagine there's so many other players or people who have just been profoundly impacted by these moments that you can't take back. but it's owning it and moving forward and understanding, the energy that comes with it. And I'm blanking on what I want to say, but the point is I can
Mhm.
understand why some of these players don't come forward right away or don't can't handle the responsibility that comes with it because eh, nobody wants to hurt somebody else
Sure, of course not.
intentionally. Right, it's still a fact, like, but the point is this is getting a little bit round away to say these ballpark sponsors and owners or the politicians or whoever doesn't want to open their pockets to extend the netting or to make people safe. God knows they inflate the prices of the ticket enough. So why
Mhm.
aren't they inflating, just build that into the cost of the ticket? They're probably doing that 10 other different ways. So what really, Jordan, are you
Yeah,
finding is holding back this baseball rule or getting
sure.
legislation to do away with that? Or what really has been the biggest hurdle to getting over some of this, to making
Yeah.
some of these changes that need to be made?
Yeah. So when I started back in 2019, I have lawyers for a reason. I have more than 100 hours worth of lawyers' fees. Been to court with someone in Illinois, and I've had a couple of lawyers I've used as consultants when I need them 20 minutes when I need Lynn, 20 minutes when I need David to check in
Mhm.
with them. So we basically said that baseball was no different from big tobacco back in 2019 when we started, and we said they know the facts. They know every winter exactly what went down the previous year, and they can anticipate what's going to happen in the next spring and summer. But they haven't been required to share this information with any of us. And that would have prevented a lot of injuries because families would have been more informed. Clearly, they would
Mhm.
have been more informed before they got to the ballpark. Agencies that would be looking out for children may have gotten the memo 50 years earlier, and maybe they would have said, "Wait a second, I'm glad you're finally sharing this. Thank you for sharing, but we have to respond appropriately, and we're not gonna allow four-year-olds to sit in these sections anymore." I think that would have been an appropriate response.
Mm.
You're not allowed to run with bulls in
Yeah.
Spain if you're under 18. And why would you allow less than 18-year-olds and certainly little toddlers to be exposed to these missiles where we know it's happening
Mhm.
regularly? And there's a number of how many times it's happening regularly, and we can get to that number as well. But why weren't they just properly informing us about what was really happening at the game? And families, of course, they're feeling like we should have known after the ones that have been seriously damaged, they are
Of
affected
course.
forever, right? So
Right.
they're in a position to scratch their head and wonder why. And I'm gonna try to help them because they're in that place right now, and I'm trying to gonna get them some reconciliation. But at the end of the day, that clearly was never demonstrated. Information to the fan base about this is what you can expect this summer and spring and summer. And by doing that, they may get the attention of some agencies that would have stepped up. Good. They should have stepped in, and they haven't. And baseball, clearly, they're very smart and they're very sharp. Rob Manfred is a commissioner of baseball now for about 10 years. He's a
Mhm.
lawyer, very bright lawyer, been in the game for 30 to 40 years. They all have enough lawyers and enough places to decide how they're going to proceed about this netting dilemma because there are trials coming on all the time that nobody knows about. Not many trials, but very important trials that are coming up that nobody ever knows about and settlements that nobody ever hears about. And people just have to see Exhibit A1 from 2019, which is a way for people to see for themselves. Exhibit A1 is a published report from 2019 called 538. A lot of numbers there. Brendan and I, journalists I've been with now 6 years, we took a look at that published report from 2019. We incorporated our own facts, and people can see for themselves it's not just the 2,400 plus major league games. It's the 14,000 other professional games every single year. And you just have to take a number. Their average foul balls in games in 2019 were 53 in a 9 inning game. So we cut that number more or less in half to 25. And if you go 14,000 times 25, that's 350,000 foul balls per year. And people can see the chart. It even tells you in 2019 the percentage of those balls on where they go. Now we have a number. Nobody's coming up with this number because nobody took out a piece of paper to write it down, but we did. We want people to see for themselves and ask the questions. Did baseball know this? How many balls were coming at 100? Because we don't know. That's one thing the report doesn't disclose. But baseball's sitting on this data. Just tell us. And if it means there's a lot more mud on your face, well, then finally present it. We just want to know how many of those balls were really going at 100 just past our kids' heads. And I think it's a fair inquiry, and we would like baseball to supply it. That's why baseball's not excited about having this conversation about doing something that would automatically make it just again, you can't do this without an outside agency. The only way we can guarantee that kids will be safe at the ballpark is if there's an outside agency that demonstrates that they did a full audit of the ballpark and they determined that these sections are for the crazies and these sections are for the children. And that's it.
Yeah,
That's what we do.
I
We
know, but
just want to have a conversation. Yeah.
you would think it's the right audience because baseball is a game of numbers. It is all about the
Mhm.
data. It is all about the pitch count. It's endless numbers and stats.
Right.
So I feel like we've got some momentum there because people love the numbers.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we can get some traction there because that makes sense, and that's a lot of foul balls.
And people can see there's even a breakdown of the percentages of which ones go in the hot zones, but people just don't know were they going at 32 miles an hour or 101 miles an hour. That's what we want to know. And we would hope that once we bring the epiphany of awareness to the people who are listening to this recording, they're going to ask for themselves. They're going to be like, wait a second. I sat in those seats just past the end of the dugouts. We went 5 times a year for 10 years while our children were growing up, and they were always unprotected. And I just saw this video from 2019. Well, you know what? We just need to know for our own memories how many balls were going, and
How
then we
many
can
times did
determine
we escape death? Yeah.
exactly, more or
You know,
less. And that's what it is. It's all it is.
we need to
Yeah.
interview the batting coaches. The
Uh-huh.
batting coaches, they could definitely attest to where those slices go and how quickly. I mean, they're paid a lot of money
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, but no, the data is available. They've been statting things for a decade or two. So if we
Mhm.
cried out together as a group or
Mhm.
individuals with
Mhm.
influence started saying, wait a second, I'm offended. Now I want to know just how many. Good. And then I'd be like, I'm glad we reached you. That's what we're doing. The three of us are effectively bringing this to more people. People can decide for themselves. Agencies could determine maybe we should have learned about this a half a century ago after the 14-year-old boy died at Dodger Stadium. And why did it take 45 years for MLB to finally put nets up behind the dugout? So just want to continually try to be effective in starting a bigger conversation. And I think most of us, we still are hoping if we've missed something important, tell us what we missed. I hope we're still in that attitude. Like, well, tell us if it was something we may have missed years ago. What is that? And then we can demonstrate to them, hopefully, a lot of information. And as I say a lot, it's all about putting the unknown on the table. And then we have all
Mhm.
the unknowns on the table and we're all staring at it. And what's gonna happen after that? Maybe conversations that are gonna come and baseball's not gonna be interested in having them. And that's just the way it goes, but we want to go there, and we wanna put it out for people to discover for themselves. So, we are in the middle of trying to prevent Black and Blues moving forward. What's done is done. The victims that I know, I think they know I have their back. I'm gonna try to get them some reconciliation. People Brendan and I have interviewed. We've interviewed people who've been blinded in one eye. Lynn's
Mm.
friend, Jenny. Lynn is my lawyer. She introduced me to her girlfriend who was blinded as a 14-year-old. She was very kind to share with her own story, and she's never been the same because she even comes through on the interview sharing with us that when she was a mom years later, she was nervous as her 8-year-old was playing baseball, and he ended up quitting the game. And in my mind, he probably quit because his mom was making him nervous. And maybe that 8-year-old is now 30 years old and saying, "You may not want to play baseball. Look what happened to grandma." These families will not be the
Mm.
same. I can give you a few more stories, but it's just people we've learned from and we've heard from. And recent person we interviewed, a woman who's a mother of two, and unfortunately, she's not going through a good way right now. She still has physical and psychological effects as a parent of two, and what happened to her at 9 or 10. She was unconscious for 4 or 5 days. That's crazy, but she was
Oh my
unconscious for 4 or
gosh.
5 days, so she's got long-term effects, and, her parents took the team up on free tickets, and I think she's going through something called gift remorse because maybe the parents should have told the team, "We don't need your free tickets, we need you to take care of the problem so it won't happen to anyone else." But they can't there's no genuine apology that can
100%.
be offered. That's where we're going here. And this woman was very nice to share with us. A pediatrician who I networked with introduced me to her and her family. So people find us at Foul Ball Safety Now, and we find them. And it's
Good.
very exciting to give people stories that are still going through their experiences, and they're happy to share with us from their perspectives as victims or baseball players, family members. We're just putting it all in front of you and all everyone to see, and we'll keep going.
That's the facts of life. If you don't know unless you ask, or you can't make change unless you try. So this is not exactly easy breezy topic, but it's
Mhm.
very important, and I just can't thank you enough for bringing it more into the light. Is it a silly question? Not that it matters per se, but is the netting expensive? Like,
It's not an expense because there's 30 billionaire clubs that are paying the
these are
salaries of
billionaires. These are
right, they're paying
billionaires.
the salaries of 120 affiliates. Some of these local teams
Gosh.
may not have the cash, or they may not even own the team in a year or 2, so they've been kicking
Yeah.
the can down the road, but you're billionaires, you're paying the salaries of these future players. Could you just take care of the netting? And imagine if
This
MLB fixed their own situation, then they could nurture every other professional, city, high school, college, that needs some help for netting. We've gotten contacted. We know of bulls that are leaving ballparks in White House,
Yeah.
Tennessee. We know of bulls
Mhm.
leaving the ballpark in Modesto, California, at Queens College. A woman who bought a house near a high school field. We learned about her situation. She can't let the kids go play outside because during the high school games, balls are leaving the field and hitting the side of her
Mhm.
house. So, how many few thousand fields are there that MLB, if they ever had their own house in order where they can guarantee safety in their own 30 ballparks, just imagine what they can do and help out every community, every college, every other professional team that may be strapped for some cash to do the right
Mhm.
thing in their neck of the woods. Because all of those people eventually are ending up or trying to end up in the major leagues. Most of them don't, and most people who are on the journey of being major leaguers, their psychological well-being is not gonna be the same because they're carrying a lot of dirty laundry, whatever, that they wanna unload on us.
I
What's
mean,
that?
just imagine if you
Yeah,
walked
yeah.
into NHL arena and they're like,
Uh-huh,
"Sorry guys, today we gotta just, like, let down the glass. We've gotta
uh-huh.
repair the glass, but we're still gonna have the game today." I mean,
Right.
oh, it's along the
But we're
same
just
lines,
getting
like,
started, yeah. We're just getting started. Hockey, a whole 'nother entity, but yes, I get
well, I'm
your
just saying,
comparison.
it's apples to
Yeah,
oranges, but it's
yeah.
ridiculous. It should be a non-issue.
We think it could be done, but it's gonna be an effective conversation, and it's gonna be some mud, and it's gonna be exposed, and not only within the just MLB itself, but there's so many people within media that work within the game that haven't said enough. Unfortunately, even
Yeah.
sideline reporters are compromised. They've taken more line drives. There's 2 line drives taken by one sideline reporter that I know of, and they have to stand in these photo
Yep.
boxes, or
The
the
camera
camel well or
crews are in
the
line.
camel toes. Yeah, they're getting hurt. when you hear these comments from sometimes when some of these things are captured on TV, it's very insensitive what the announcers are saying. These people that are in these camera wells are nervous as
It's
heck.
fodder.
They don't
It's
wanna
like,
be
"Whoa,
there.
watch
Yeah,
out."
exactly. Yeah, so we can get
Yeah,
into some of that, and
yeah.
we've captured a lot of that, so we have many examples of that, and the yikes lookout is definitely gonna be part of what we talk about for the next few months, that what happened in Seattle a few weeks ago, how this could be business as usual in 2025. It's not acceptable. If there was an agency involved that endorsed this field as being good to go, you wouldn't see that bat going into the net over the nets and coming at people like boomerangs or potentially spearing somebody in the heart.
I mean,
Go
America's
ahead.
rebuilding right now. That's what we're doing with we're cleaning up the mud. This is the best time to be doing this, Jordan. I love it. Did Michael Rubin respond to your letter?
Michael Rubin. Who's
The
Michael Rubin?
Topps CEO when they made a
Oh, no, no, yeah, so Fanatics, which acquires Topps baseball cards, and I've seen on TV this year, there's a lot of partnerships going on with Fanatics. Last year, I'm glad you brought it up.
great.
I'm like, "What the heck is Topps Cards thinking?"
That's
When this woman, this
disgusting.
poor Liz gets smacked in the head by a 110-mile-an-hour ball, could have been a horrible result. She got a bruise for sure, and what do they do? They celebrate the fact, "Way to go, Liz. Way to survive a 110-mile-an-hour ball. We're gonna print up 110 cards of you." And, like,
Yeah.
what kind of message is that? I was in touch with the Children's Hospital in Toronto. I think it was in Toronto, and I said to them, "I heard that this woman will be giving some charity towards she's gonna be raising money from the 110 cards that she got, which I think is great, but do you really wanna be associated with this charity?" And they got back to me, and they said, "Well, Jordan, we really don't worry about where our money comes from. We need the money." I was like, "Ah, okay, okay." I just thought,
Wow.
you may not wanna be part of that kind of charity, but I made my point, and I just thought it was so bad taste that they did that, and yes,
Unbelievable.
that's yeah, what kind of message you sending? It could have been a very bad result, and you would not have wanted to get print up a 110 mile an hour corpse, ball hitting somebody and
Oh.
ending up being something really terrible. But yeah, we made our point known. Yeah, that hadn't been discussed in a while. Thank you for bringing it up. Everyone go to Foul Ball Safety Now. I think we have some tab there which Elle discovered, so thank you. Please look at that incident.
Well,
Great,
props
great.
to the woman for making lemonade out of a very dire situation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, Elle, I know you love baseball and it's been such a huge part of your life. Do
I
you
do, I do.
Yeah, do you feel like
You
you've
feel like
lost
you've lost.
faith the leadership that's running Major League Baseball?
So, I guess I really hadn't put as much stock into a question like that until I discovered Jordan and this incredible movement, and, it really has brought up actually quite a bit, it's stirred up I mean, I can picture myself sitting on the baseball field where I grew up, where it is now actually named after my family, and I have a photo of my parents because my mother kept the book every game. So my dad sat at the end of the bench and my mother sat next to him and was as big of a part of the coaching staff or the team as he was really. And I can vividly picture them sitting there. Basically, just envision the batter's box and then maybe 15 feet behind are the dugouts or, down first base and down third base with nothing to protect them except your reflection or reaction skills, your, how fast or your eye-hand coordination. And it was like very taken for granted. I mean, you were definitely told, "Heads up." Like, I grew up basically, "Heads up." And, it's just remarkable now that this fast forward to these billion-dollar stadiums and enterprises, that they cannot provide protection, proper protection, and have all the money in the world and are just it's not important to them, and it really disturbs me. Does it make me feel differently about the game? No, it's for the love of the game. It's honestly a very intelligent game. I'm passionate about it. You have to think 5 steps ahead, really, even though it's very much, and as we're discussing, in the moment, in a blink of an eye. If the person in charge is not doing their job, well, then that's always the biggest factor in question, and that should be what we're looking at.
And I think we're all looking to really be able to say the word integrity in baseball in the same sentence. And wouldn't that be
Mhm.
a lovely idea?
Yeah.
And I think it's possible. So I'm with you. I'm a passionate baseball guy, always will be, but there
Mhm.
is a possibility of incorporating the word integrity into baseball. And we'll get there when I think we all get there, when enough people know about this conversation and we finally agree that certain things may need to be done or should have been done. I think I'm
Mhm.
going for it. I'm going to stay with it because I'm confident others will believe that there is a need for a building. Doesn't have to be $100 million building, but it could be a converted store on Main Street into a place where people will learn the history of everything foul balls and learn about things that may have not been disclosed. It's just
Mhm.
what it is. It's part of the legacy of the game and more people that learn about this point of destination, the more people that were involved in the game will want to take part in it. We already have some sense, speaking with more than 30 baseball players who are very nice human beings, that they want to get the
Right.
monkey off their back and they want to
Mhm.
share about their own experiences and their own dilemmas and telling their own parents that they have to sit in certain sections at the same time knowing one of them were going to do some serious damage. I mean, just that in itself is very powerful. You could find that
Mhm.
in newspaper quotes, but we found them through firsthand, first account interviews. So until we address what the insiders knew that should have been caught up with the outside individuals and the baseball fans and the outside agencies, then we're still in the dark. We'll remain in the dark, but we'll stay healthy aggression and vigilant. I don't know if vigilance the right word, that doesn't sound like healthy aggression, but we are positive and we are committed, I am, and the people that are dedicating their time, who could be working on other things like Brianna and Brendan, I think are committed with me as well. So we're excited to keep this conversation going. I think this was terrific,
Well,
and
thank you for having me. I gotta
oh,
tell
you're
you,
quite
there's
welcome.
been just so much nodding on my end, just nodding
Aw. Well, that's what we're
in
doing. Well, thank you
yeah,
for being receptive. You're
my hand
open-minded.
is raised as high as I can,
Aw.
and I am on board.
We just wanna know exactly what kind of steps could be taken immediately, what steps should have been taken, because this will address the people that have been smacked in the past, and they deserve some kind of reconciliation, and they just wanna be
Mhm.
respected, and they wanna know how
Right.
to talk to their own children about this, because it has a generational effect for those that unfortunately have been exposed. But we're optimistic over here, and we'll remain working at this conversation, and we believe we're doing something here positively. So, I want to thank Brianna Ludwig, of course, and our guest Elle. We really appreciate you being with us today,
The
and
pleasure
we'll
was
do it
mine.
again
Thank you both.
soon. Thank you, everyone.